Welcome back to the final episode of the three-part series where we dive into my new studio space. For this episode, we are going to be diving into sort of the peripherals and just the things that we brought in to kind of make this space a bit more catered to what we plan on using it for. If you guys haven't seen the last two episodes, make sure to go check that out. They will be linked down below in the description just to kind of recap yourself and get you up to speed. Now, over the years, of course, and I'm sure this is probably the same for you too, we end up collecting a lot of things that we don't necessarily use at home. Essentially, it's just baggage that we're just holding on to, and I don't know about you guys, but I always kind of have this mentality that there is going to come a time where we're going to use this, and it's going to be really helpful that I have it. Now, I don't do that with everything, doesn't necessarily make me a complete hoarder, but there are certain things that I know I'm going to use it, or it's really good for, at least in the creative process of making things, it's going to really help me if we were to have a separate space. I started to think about what were some things that we can bring and use here. One of those things, lucky enough, is my old iMac that I used to have. Now, I currently have a 2020 iMac. I believe this is a 2013, 14. It's a very old iMac. It isn't great, but I thought since it's literally sitting in a box at home anyway, why not bring it in and at least use it as maybe an extra display to connect it to my camera so that I can actually see a visual, or use it for simple surfing on Safari, anything like that where it's kind of basic functions for the most part. I thought, why not bring it in? Now, after cleaning the tabletop and having that completely smoothed down, as you saw in the last episode, this was going to be the ideal spot to have this computer. Like I said, this iMac is a 2013, I believe, so at this point there are certain updates that don't come to this computer anymore because it's that old, but we did what we could and updated some of the software to the latest that it really could take, got it all set up, and it's working like a charm still. Plus, it just makes the space look a lot more official. Some other things that we brought in were a old rug that used to be in my living room. Lucky enough, my mom stored it. I guess she's kind of like me at the end of the day and just felt like, we could probably use this at one point. Well, guess what? We're using it. So as I talked about in the previous episode, how the floors are still kind of dirty in terms of just dried up paint being on there, I thought, let me make the space feel a bit more homey and sort of divide the space up into kind of two sections. The section closer to the door being more of the kind of equipment area where I can kind of, throw things down, store certain items, or just do anything that I need to do kind of behind the scenes, and use this carpet on this side so it just looks a bit more professional and a bit more inviting. With the carpet in place, we kind of got a bit lucky with this next part. The table that I'm currently sat at and talking to you from was actually a table that a professor was going to get rid of. Now, this table was essentially supposed to be used for an art exhibit. Didn't really work out and they were going to get rid of it. And I saw it disassembled and kind of just in a corner by his office. So I reached out kind of see if they were getting rid of it, and if they were getting rid of it, if I was able to take it. He let me know that, yeah, feel free to take it. So we rolled the thing over and set it up, and now we have this nice round table to do these kind of sit down talks. Now, because the table is in the shape of a circle, it does a great job of just kind of contrasting to the rest of the room. I do like that it is in white, so it kind of matches with the walls and just looks very aesthetically pleasing. Now, the one component that we did sort of kind of splurge just a little bit for the space is picking up a new Blue Yeti microphone. You guys have seen this mic in previous videos before. Lucky enough, there were some sales going on, so it wasn't super expensive, along with a new mic arm, and we attached them to the table using the clamp system that they work off of. With the table and the audio sort of set up, now let's talk about lighting. So I decided to bring in my DIY light from my house to this space. I do plan on making more of them. I think they're a great alternative if you're not trying to spend a ton of money on a very professional studio light. But the one problem that we had to solve were the actual lights that were set up in the studio space to begin with. Now, you probably saw when we first walked into the space and up until this point that we've been dealing with these two lights at the top, these sort of kind of ring lights, and they're actually pretty nice. They look great. I think they're very aesthetically pleasing when you kind of look at them, but the only problem is that they were very warm. So for me and my sort of preference when it comes to lighting, I tend to set my lights to be a bit cooler. So after kind of sitting on this issue for quite some time, it randomly dawned on me that we can actually use some CTB gels to fix this problem. Now, if you're not familiar with what these gels are, they're essentially just sort of transparent pieces of paper that are either orange or blue, or really they can be any color, and they help just change the color of a light. Now, of course, since the lights are a bit warmer, we picked up a few of these gels. We had a few different grades of that blue, but after figuring out which one sort of gave us the best look possible, we cut those up to a better size and began taping them on the light itself. Funny enough, when you look up at them, because there's sort of this kind of transparent look to them, you don't even notice them at all. And it basically solved the problem so that now the lights are a lot more uniform and they all look more like this neutral white and gives me the look that I'm kind of going for. Now, the other component that this space is really going to help me with is with future collections. Now, I don't have that much space in my room to hold more samples or store an excess of orders, but by having this space, it's really gonna help provide an extra space for all of these different garments that we're going to be doing in the future, along with holding on to certain inventory and even just working on the collections themselves. Now, of course, dealing with all of these samples, we needed a place to store them, but to also maybe put them on display. So we picked up this clothing rack from Target, and it was extremely cheap, which was nice and basically gets the job done. And it was pretty easy to assemble. We did everything here. A lot of it was just twisting things into place, applying certain pressure to kind of get things to kind of stay together, and it came up pretty good. Finally, we had a whiteboard that we brought from home. The way we put this whiteboard up was putting two thumbtacks on either end of the wooden strip that's towards the top of the wall and just hooking the whiteboard on top. We'll probably use this whiteboard for just kind of experimenting on certain ideas if I feel like I need to write something down, kind of see it literally on a big canvas, or to kind of set up maybe a schedule or something like that. It's just always nice to have. It was sitting at home. I wasn't using it. It's just sort of a nice touch here in the studio. Now, we did bring in 2 chairs from the outside classroom. There are a ton of stools and chairs out there, and this is sort of like the typical thing that students will do, is they'll bring in a chair or 2 into their spaces. So we have these 2 matching chairs, which is nice, and that's essentially it. That is the entire studio space and the things that we brought in. Of course, there was a ton of other just little things that we brought from the house, but for the most part, it's all things that we've either haven't used in a long time, or we don't really just have a need for it at the time or where our space was, and this is sort of just a better home for it, and it would actually get utilized here. I think a lot of great things are going to come out of the studio. Of course, this space isn't going to be permanent, but it's going to be a great first step in terms of just figuring out how I end up operating outside of my own home, and a bit of a learning experience so that I know in the future I want to own my own studio space that has multiple rooms and the entire thing is dedicated to just being a creative in general. I'm sure over time there's going to be new things that come into the studio, so maybe in a couple months we'll do another edition just to kind of update you guys on what's new, what's come in, and how we're using it, or maybe just even my overall experience and the good and bad of having a studio space, and especially as a college student, what that experience is like. Let me know if you guys would be interested to see a video like that. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like down below if you actually liked the video, and maybe consider subscribing. If not, all good. Maybe I'll convince you next time. And yeah, I'm out of here. Love you. I'll see you guys later. Bye.